generally animus.
Well, I should drug host to this meeting occasionally.
Animus is generally going to be pretty heavy, so like either way, you might as well just use the bones you have available. Okay, we're 5 minutes past. We'll go ahead and get started. So, let's see. What do we have on the table this time? We have 26.1, which is the current one-click alpha install viewer. That should be getting some updates. We just shipped that earlier this week. Should be getting some updates just to generally bring it better in line with 26.1. So be on the lookout for that. Generally, not a whole lot going on content creator wise for 26.1. We're just kind of doing a bunch of maintenance tasks here, making freeze detection work better. Well, actually work in the first place, I should say, which should give us a better idea of what's going on in the viewer whenever it locks up and things like that. Still some tweaking and tuning going on there. We're hoping this will make it easier for us to go through and drill down into common freezing problems and things that just go outside the typical realm of crash reporting inside the viewer. One click for those who are unaware. That's new install experience. That's also bringing a much more simplified update experience as well. Something that's a lot more modern. Nowadays, whenever you go through and try to update the viewer, you no longer have to go through the install experience all over again. It'll just do it transparent in the background for you. This is for both Windows and Mac, and when we get to it, Linux as well. We'll talk about that in just a moment. 26.2 is the next release. That's kind of bringing with it just more general UX and UI goodies. Um, Notably, we're going for the new flat UI stuff, which if you've been using P0, you've already been getting a pretty good taste of that. It's not going to be super duper different from what you're used to today. Just flattening out a few elements in the UI, a bit of a palette swap as well. So that's kind of what we're going for there. Nothing terribly groundbreaking. We are experimenting with some font changes. Hopefully, I'll have more news on that in the relative near future. That's still an experiment that we're tinkering with right now. That's a pretty involved one, too. The hope is to make UI just generally more readable with a newer, fresher, more up to date font. But we're still working through a few technical issues on that just to see if we're even going to be able to ship that. So again, one of those things where hopefully I'll have more information for you guys soon. Let's talk about Slua next. We do have a Slua viewer alpha update that's coming pretty soon. With that, we'll also bring in the host of everything that's currently in the viewer's develop branch. So be on the lookout for that. Hopefully, they'll be getting posted up here in the next few hours. So you should see it sometime after this meeting today. Um, Note that this does not bring with it the new one-click stuff or anything like that. We're keeping this fairly contained right now. That also means that you'll be getting an update to the Linux viewer, since we are currently looking to ship the new Linux viewer with Slua once we have that ready to go. No ETA on when Slua general availability will be at this point, which also includes the viewer. But of course, as soon as I know something, I will let you guys know. That's about it as far as viewer updates and what all's going on there. Do we have a writer today? I don't think I see a writer. But yep, that's where we're at. I'll just go ahead and open the floor to questions and all that fun stuff. Oh, yeah, there's one thing I forgot. Something that I have been talking about for almost a year now, which is SSR updates, screen space reflections. I was forgetting something. Um, so Um, for those of you who have maybe been bunkering down during the whole PBR experience and are using an older viewer, um, you might have one less reason to be sticking to your older viewer. We're still working on what the release vehicle for this looks like, but we are talking about shipping a Screen Space Reflections alpha viewer. The new Screen Space Reflections is generally much improved over what you currently have in a V7 viewer. First of all, Screen Space Reflections actually work, which is a huge improvement. Um, and just generally, it looks prettier for a wide variety of different use cases. We're going to go through and do an alpha, beta, and then release process for this, just to kind of incorporate feedback from the community, since we do anticipate that there will be people who have comments and will spot things that don't quite look right or people feel could be better. So be on the lookout for that. We don't have a specific release date for an alpha on that, just sometime after we get 26.1, either further along in its current release process or finally released to the rest of the grid. So keep an eye out. Uh, the alpha will be on Agni. This doesn't require any sort of grid changes, so you'll be able to just to use this viewer on any grid. Okay, so let me just kind of scroll up a little bit so we can get caught up on questions here.
Oh yeah, weren't you on about one?
I'm sorry, when I'm on about what?
I don't know if you had the idea of trying to do PBR lighting at some point,
Oh, yeah.
or if that's on the table.
So that is an at some point, yeah. Um, there are a good few server-side changes that would need to happen for that. Mostly because, well, the Second Life lighting model is not exactly it's not
We went in at the last meeting. There's making it exact.
so the current Second Life lighting pipeline, the biggest problem with it is we do have a lot of constraints that have just been there for over 20 years, um, which is a little bit problematic when you're trying to do like PBR lighting. Um, so we would need to go through and make some modifications to how that works, particularly on the server, before we'd be able to like have full PBR lighting that's aligned with the GLTF spec in the viewer. So that's gonna probably be on the back burner for a while we work through other viewer related things. So it's not quite forgotten about. It's just one of those things where we need to find somewhere to get it into the priority stack on top of all the other priorities that we have in flight right now. So that's kind of where we're at right now with PBR lighting. Ty, with regards to the rig mesh stuff, um, right now it doesn't really matter if you don't have like all the bones there or not. We kind of treat it all the same. So like, and performance wise, it's not going to make. I mean, if we had custom rigs, it would make a lot more impact, but we don't have that right now. So, yeah. Yeah, Sarah, I don't think we're doing in-world meshing anytime soon. There isn't really a lot to add to that conversation. Like, unfortunately, other tools just generally do it way better than us. And there are a lot more than just Blender in terms of meshing 3D model making tools out there that you can mess with. Yeah, sorry. I mean, like, 3D model making software is definitely kind of a thing that I have interest in, but like, it's really hard to go through and compete nowadays with that. Um, I figure if we ever did do something like it, the best we could possibly do is mesh proxies where you can just select a bunch of objects and group them together into a singular mesh. But that's a good bit different from what you're asking for here. Let's see here. What's the best one for a novice? There was one that I really enjoyed until the Foundry killed it. It was called Modo, but they discontinued it just because Blender exists pretty much, and more people are moving to Blender. There are some extensions out there that can help make Blender's quality of life a little bit better. There was a Modo one out there that I quite liked for a little bit there, but last I checked, it was kind of not getting updated and was kind of falling behind. So I'm not entirely sure that's like as relevant anymore. So yeah, sorry. A lot of the easy to learn ones have kind of fallen out of favor just because of Blender's existence. Let's see. Any plans to streamline exports from major software? I mean, you already have GLTF. You can just export GLTF now, and it does support rigged mesh. So that's a thing you can do by and large. Avastar and whatnot, generally that just kind of helps you with the overall rigging process with what we do. But you don't need to have Avastar in the strictest sense in order to upload rigged mesh to the grid. If you just have a rig and if you have the avatar rig and you um, make it work with your mesh, you should be able to just export that and the viewer should accept it. If it is not accepting it, then that's a bug. Now, that being said, what would help there is generally custom rigs, because right now we kind of have um, either you're using our rig or you're not um, set up, and that's not exactly super conducive to modern content creation. So, um, maybe someday we'll have custom rigs. I've certainly been trying to get that one somewhere in the priority stack, just because it does open the door to a lot more creative possibilities on the platform. So that being said, something that's been near and dear to my heart recently, though not necessarily for Second Life, is the OpenUSD specification. But I feel like if we wanted to go in that direction, that's really going to be more of a let's rethink how assets kind of conceptually work for content creation, going from like Maya or Blender or dot 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 directly into Second Life. But that's a much bigger conversation to be had. That's something that probably is not happening this year, just because of how complex that is likely to get. There's a lot of other things that I feel like we should probably focus on with the existing asset import flow to make people's lives easier before we start talking about big leaps in file formats any more than what we've already done. What you might want to try, Kobe. Um, I believe Maya comes with OpenUSD support directly, and I know that Blender ships with it nowadays. What you might want to try and do is just go from Maya to Blender in that regard, and then use Blender to export the final GLTF file. We generally tested against Blender whenever we were working on that feature. The good thing about OpenUSD is that you only really have one source of truth in terms of implementation, and that's provided by Pixar. So, and not to mention Blender's GLTF export is generally pretty top tier. So,
Yeah, that would be nice for Joe's on about to have like an incoming folder by default anyway for when you upload stuff. I'm sure you can change that in Steam, can't you?
I mean, generally uploading and adding objects to the. I mean, inventory management is always one of those things where we could always be doing better. Uh, would be interested to hear ideas on how we can improve that flow as you're uploading content. So, you know, make cannies,
Um,
can't throw me for that.
I was just thinking of it from the idea of preventing a big flat inventory, which you know the system hates a lot, so, you know. Yeah, Firestorm at least does let you choose where to put uploads. as a default. I'm just looking at it here.
Yeah, so just quickly touching on material import for meshes. It is something we wanted to do for the GLTF mesh import stuff. Um, but just generally, um, well, with how asset upload works, that turned out to be a much more complex than anticipated task. So we had to cut it. One of these days, I would like it if we could come back to that and just have a new import flow that's much more modern and just makes more sense going off of other engines and tools flows. Like, for example, doing something similar to Unreal Engine, um, except maybe a little bit more abridged than what it does, and just giving you a reasonably accurate preview of what you're trying to upload than it just going through and uploading all the things that you need to have that just be effectively drag and drop in world. Um, but we're ways out from that right now. Again, just kind of due to current priorities.
We did talk in the past about the probability of having something that uploads and lets you choose the attachment point, and it kind of sort of broached on the subject of builds, etc. So the idea that we could actually say never attach this building to a body would be kind of cool.
Oh, I want to walk around with a skyscraper attached to my right hand. I was kind of hoping that, to get this whole scene graph thing working, I could walk around with a whole region attached to me, pelvis, I guess.
Somebody actually mentioned to the land meeting yesterday that people are using bots to attach buildings to themselves to get around the prim count, and that blew my mind.
people do that in no-res areas all the time. Attach things to themselves and then, like, pretty the place up a bit while they're sat in one place. Honestly, it's kind of, like, fun, really. Gives the odd grief in the place. Sarah, that's how region surrounds tend to work. You got root prim inside the region, like the actual mesh or sculpt way outside. The other one being a mega prim sculpt. The tiny empires, they tend to only be like 10 or so at most in a region. I'll have to check that. I know some of the mainland stuff is homestead class.
Yeah, Bean, I'm not entirely sure that we have a direct line of contact to the trust and safety team for questions like that. I'd maybe ask around on the Discord, perhaps, or see if you can maybe flag down someone's attention on Canny, and maybe ask your question from there. And as far as land impact and what the point is, it's pretty much resource usage. Like regions only have so many prims, and we kind of have to manage that for given how regions actually work. basically our way of trying to basically wrangle, hey, this server can only handle this much stuff. Plan accordingly. And this is what we estimate the impact of your thing to be on the region. And a few other things as well, like how complex is it to render on the client. Yeah, traffic bots should be something you can report. I'm just kind of going down the list right now, and I don't see something specific to reporting it. But yeah.
I mean, traffic's a meaningless number these days, anyway. It's not like you get any reward for it.
Maybe our governance liaison can give you a little bit more information on how to report those.
The butterfly.
Governance, I think it might be helpful if you list what would be the most appropriate category to report under for the abuse report dialogue.
Dima, a lot of those things that you think are bots, they aren't actually bots, although they are playing some traffic game or another bit, like Lindo or some fishing game or whatever. At Lindo, you can't be AFK while playing. You have to be, even if you're only clicking a button, you still have to be interacting. It's Lindo, not Linden. And honestly, if the lab are going to come after you for making a mesh linden tree, then what is the world coming to? I want to make a lime tree in my back garden and call it by its Latin name.
That's a lot of that's a lot of dots.
Yeah, you go around the parts of the Madlands and you will see piles of dots like that. It's an ever-present thing. There's anytime you see a pile of dots like that, you go find the skybox associated with it, and it will be a bunch of like suspiciously bot-like avatars. Let's just put it that I will not call it one way or another. I will just say suspiciously bot-like. Oh yeah, there's people using the hell out of the automatic avatar creation tool to create like keyboard smash avatar names. And yes, it is perpetually happening at all hours of the welcome areas.
Christy, it is on the personal want to get it done list, PBR specular that is, um, for a good few reasons. Obviously, believe it or not, Blin Fong was going to be pretty close to GLTF PBR specular way before the GLTF spec was even really a thing. But there are a few things that kind of got in the way of that that I'm not going to go into here. That being said, PBR specular I feel like is generally a lot easier conceptually for people to understand who have been using the platform for a long time.
I know the subjects kind of got changed, but maybe the way to stop the big bot invasions would be to go back to the limitation of how many accounts you can have per email, especially for non-premium accounts, perhaps.
Some of this stuff sounds probably a little bit more appropriate for the land and support group. So I'd probably take some of this conversation to that user group. Let me just check the calendar real quick to see when that is.
You have a Concierge group. Wendy Linden runs it. Well, it's for all landowners. It's land and concierge.
I believe that is the one I'm talking about. And yeah, Christy, we were talking about the same thing as far as PBR specular. It would, in fact, be spec roughness, not spec gloss. And I have looked into generally what you need to get it done, like from a viewer standpoint, and how do we make it also integrate with metallicness. Oh, one sec. And it generally doesn't look too terrible to really implement. So we would need to just, again, it's just one of those things where it needs to find time to get the dependent pieces together, on top of all the other priorities we have right now. To give you an idea of what it looks like to try and get a GLTF extension on the table. We do have some server-side work, mostly because we do validate what you're trying to give us. This is just to kind of prevent people from inserting certain fields that shouldn't be there. So we need to update the validator check. We would need to have a conversation about scripting as well. There are numerous problems with how we do GLTF overrides. We have had numerous conversations internally about how to make that not suck, basically. Because right now, with GLTF overrides, there's a lot of network traffic that happens whenever you go through it and say, change base color on a PBR material. That could be generally streamlined and optimized. But even the server team has its own backlog of priorities that they need to get through. So if we did launch PBR Specular, there's a slight chance that it would come without any sort of scripting support, just because that's pretty problematic right now. To add more things, I should say. And then from there, it's just pretty much we have the GLTF material in the viewer, and we do something with it. That's the easy part. So yeah, ideally, before we got onto additional GLTF material support, and that is definitely something I would like us to get back to, especially given that we do have like a lot of things that, um, you know, from almost 2 years ago now, that we were showing off, like IOR and all that other stuff. I would like it if we did get back to that, but we do have a pretty decent share of GLTF override bugs and stuff like that I'd prefer that we got done first, just because that's a general quality of life improvement for everyone on the grid, like today. So custom rigs would have some functionality with existing clothing and such. But that's a bit of a complex conversation to get into. There's this thing called animation retargeting. A lot of engines have it. Ours does not. And if we did custom rigs, that would be one of the things I would hope that we ship. So being able to say, hey, this joint on this custom rig correlates to something over here on the main Second Life rig, and just enabling a content creator to set all that stuff up. So, but that's a long-term feature, and that's a pretty significant project as well. In the process, we would also want to go through and update our mesh format internally as well. Not the one necessarily that you're exporting to, but the one that we use internally for Second Life mesh assets, which is not super well equipped for any new features right now.
I mean, bearing in mind that some of the weirder avatars out there that rely on torturing the heck out of the existing skeleton anyway already don't work well with normal animations, I imagine just having animations not work with custom rigs wouldn't be a problem.
So custom rigs and who they're for is a really easy question to answer. Custom rigs are for everyone. Human avatars, non-human avatars, lots of applications for both. Heck,
Yeah.
you can have any random object in world that just uses a custom rig for one reason or another. You can give a tree a rig so you can animate it swaying in the wind or something. So don't don't assume that's just for non-human things.
Literally the Pixar bouncy little desk lamp.
Retargeting would need animation retargeting would need to be a feature that we support with custom rigs, just because of the vast volumes of animations that we have on the platform today. So
I would still love to see LSL expanded to see to be able to say play this animation with this goddamn permission, with this goddamn priority. But you know that's a continually asked for thing, I think.
yeah, our animation system could use a little bit of love, but that's yet another like big project that's probably not happening anytime soon. Custom rigs would probably be likely to happen well before something like that.
Gets around the whole problem. People saying, "Well, my animation needs to be top priority." Well, your script can just say, I don't care what you think your animation wants.
It would be nice if we could have animation graphs, since that seems to be generally what everyone else is moving towards nowadays. But that's a pretty complex thing for us to implement. Would require probably quite a few server side changes to make that work. But I mean, hey, would be great for scripting animations and whatnot. Just set a weight parameter somewhere, and boom, you're somewhere else on the graph.
Oh yeah, keyframes, but for bones.
Not exactly.
Keyframe motion.
Not exactly. So, like, the idea behind, say, an animation graph is that you would have basically a graph of animations that you'd want to have playing under specific conditions. Those conditions would basically be controlled by like an input parameter that says, I don't know, left leg up or something like that, and you would then drive that parameter through a script to basically play the left leg up animation along with
Yeah.
other animations inside the graph. And then from there, the viewer just would be simulating the animation as it normally would. But that's, again, a bit of a distant project. We haven't even really fully discussed something like that. It's a cool idea, but need time to get through current priorities first.
Yeah.
We don't have we're not as big as a Microsoft, a Google, or your typical game studio. So we don't have
Which I'm
to
not
work on
sure
things.
what the I don't know if it was discussed at the beginning of the meeting or whatever, but what are the current priorities? Just wondering what's coming down the pipe.
So right now, priority-wise, we have what we call first impressions, which is our current priority. This is really intended to hopefully pull in more people that haven't used the platform before, um, and to hopefully get them to stick around as well. We have multiple things coming down the pipe for that. I've already detailed that as part of 26.1 and 26.2. And yeah, that's the main thing that we're working on right now. Slua is the biggest content creation thing that we're still focused on. And we do not yet have a general availability date for that.
Let's just start playing with that, I suppose, or at least compiling scripts under the new thing.
So yeah, as a result, we kind of have to pick our priorities very carefully as far as what we work on today. Um, and a big part of that is going to be what we think will grow the platform um, with minimal effort. Um, because then, if we can knock those things out, then we can start talking about bigger things like bringing back some of the GLTF materials work, things like that.
Game controller.
Game control is something on the list, but yeah, we're still figuring out where to put stuff like that.
That's almost done, isn't it? And like, I remember people were already playing with it.
UX was the biggest thing that ended up getting hung up on. Someone has has managed to revive it. I believe Rye managed to do that in a pull request targeting the new Linux branch. So, in order for us to really ship that, we would need to get Linux out the door, which is currently slated to release with Slua. And then game control would probably come sometime after that, which I think is actually pretty good overall. And I think it is something that we should explore. Like, how are we going to release that? Just because there's a lot of people who use video game controllers nowadays, and imagine being able to install Second Life on a Steam Deck, and you just natively
Yeah,
controller support right there.
exactly what I'm thinking. I've got two handhelds right here. 3 even.
Anyways, we're at time for today. Thanks everyone for coming out. For those of you that are going to be at the open source meeting tomorrow, I'll see you then. And see you in a couple of weeks. Otherwise.